Now, as far as this whole report, I think the biggest question people are going to have is like, is Tennessee in trouble? Is their recruiting momentum over? Because this has been a big part of it. I really don't think so because, like you talked about, one, the NIL is not going anywhere. I mean, the Supreme Court said so. That is what it is. I mean, it's NCAA cannot do anything about that. And what they're trying to focus on is the rule that is, it's not a new rule. It's not something that they're trying to put in place. It's still in place, has been in place, even with NIL, is that boosters cannot contact recruits, but before they get to campus and offer them money and this and that. I feel like that's really easy to get around. I mean, all you have to do is what they've been doing for years, and you can still do it publicly, as you just have all these middle people and like a collective where you're giving donations to the collective, and as long as the collective is not donating to the school or run by, I assume, as long as it's not run by boosters, people donating to the school, which I think if Tennessee is helping, I mean, if the Spire is helping Tennessee land top talent, they're not going to be expecting donations from those guys running that. I mean, I feel like as long as you're not doing that, you're clean, right? Like you can do whatever you want. You can communicate with the athletes because you're setting up legitimate NIL deals, which they are. How much they get paid, if it's market value or way over market value, that's a different conversation. It really doesn't matter. But I feel like as long as they're doing that, they should be good, right? Like there's nothing the NCAA can really come at them with.
So again, you steered this perfectly in the direction that I wanted to go. This was really going to be my next point. This is a quote from that Athletic article from, I believe, Ackerman from the Big East. So a representative from the Big East. This is what they had to say. Quote, "We forecasted pretty much everything that's happened except for collectives," said Ackerman, a member of the current NIL subcommittee who co-chaired with Smith the earlier working group that drafted the eventually scrapped NIL legislation. Quote, "We didn't envision packs of donors banding together to create pools of money they would spend, in some cases, totally indiscriminately. That isn't something we predicted." And it goes on to kind of say that basically the NCAA is going to try to take a tack of collectives are boosters and collectives working with players is illegal. That's kind of the tack that they're going to use. But with the pushback that's in this article from the people that represent collectives is they basically go, come and take it. Good luck with that. The Supreme Court ruled in our favor. Like, good luck. Because like I read that quote earlier, the second the NCAA tries to do that, these collectives and the teams of lawyers I'm sure they have that represent them and work with them, the second that the NCAA tries to interfere with that, these lawyers are going to go and file antitrust lawsuits against the NCAA because it would be the NCAA working in direct, what would the word be? Contravention, I guess, directly against that Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court said these players got to get paid, and the NCAA would be stepping in and saying, oh, no, they can't get paid. And so instantly, oh, that's an antitrust lawsuit. And so good luck, NCAA. Good luck. And so what I think is going to happen from this is nothing. I think that these super aggressive collectives, I don't want to say they broke the system, but they beat, it's a loophole, just as you were saying there. It is. And good for everybody that thought it up. I don't know whose idea that was, but
that was brilliant. Yeah.
It is something I absolutely did not see coming. When I first saw it, and I still kind of feel this way, I'm kind of back and forth on them. Conceptually, I love it. It feels a little scammy in some senses.
You gotta have a lot of transparency with something like that.
Exactly. The thing that I would love, and this counts for every collective across college football and college sports in general. Where is the money going? I would really like to see.
You want the books opened?
Exactly. Like, and essentially, if they would form as 501c3s, you're basically required to do that. 501c3, for folks who don't talk in tax codes, is a charitable organization. basically.
I mean, can they operate that way though? Because
I don't
they're
know. It's
issuing
Mitch.
payments. I mean, they're issuing payments because I'm guessing
Let me
there's two
see.
there's two things that I wonder about here. One is, does the antitrust part of this come into play where say you're Cooper Mays at Tennessee and a company in Knoxville approaches you directly about an NIL deal. There's no collective involved. They come in and they say, "Hey, I want to pay you for appearances, social media posts, autographs, etc." The company's owned by a Tennessee booster. Now, the NCAA is saying that the booster can't have contact, with the players. Is it just players? Is it recruits before they get to campus? When is it okay once they get to campus? Uh, and
So it
then is that an issue with the booster direct? I mean, I feel like that's part of the antitrust deal because you're limiting where they can profit.
Yeah, so it discusses that very briefly in this Athletic article. And first of all, it does say Caspino, the lawyer in this article, he said he deals primarily with Caspino said he deals primarily with lawyers for the collectives, which are formed either as for-profit LLCs or 501c3s. So there are at least some that are 501c3s. Not sure how they convince people that they're not for profit, but I don't blame people for trying to cash in on it. I just want to know if that's your aim. Are you trying to make these players money, or are you trying to make you money? That's kind of
Well,
the distinction that
how
I want
deep
to see.
into it are they? Are they the ones kind of working the deals for the players? Are they paying the players? Are they collectives? Are the companies paying the collective and the collectives writing the
Yeah.
check? I mean, how does all
And
that
see that
work?
this is what I want to know. I want to know the whole back end. We said this on a previous episode. Like, who could we, because we said, even if we got the folks from Spire on here, they're not gonna discuss all of that. And they shouldn't.
They've put a decent amount out there though,
They do. They do.
and
And
like
maybe
even
they
in that
would.
article
I
from
don't
the
know.
Athletic, directly talks about how they're not supposed to be talking to recruits, assuming they're boosters and operating as boosters. They're not supposed to be talking to recruits, and they've
But
pretty
they do.
openly, they've openly
Yeah.
talked about that they do.
They absolutely do. And it says that in that article. It says Spire Sports, a Tennessee specific collective whose co-founders are former agents, does not hide the fact that the collective visits with recruits during the process. But like
I'm like,
even if you had, well, even if you had Spire on here, I don't know that they would give kind of those gritty details. But that
not
is,
now, not now.
yeah, especially now that they're probably looking and going like, all right, we gotta
Button this
we
up a
gotta
little bit. Yeah.
yeah, gotta protect our butt. Be thinking about that. And so how how could we? Who would know this? Can I get this lawyer on here? I just want to know the behind the scenes who, because it seems like to snake around all of these rules and to do all these workarounds and everything, you would really need like a compliance lawyer the entire time sitting over your shoulder, just being like,
Mm-hmm.
don't talk to that person. Don't say a word, because then they can get us. Because they like the thing with the old way of paying players was, as long as you kept it all wrapped up, you were good to go. You had to cover your butt any way that you needed to. I think the same is still very true here, because as you're saying, what if a company is owned by a booster and that company is going to give a kid an NIL deal?
You can't
Well,
stand in the way, right?
yeah, they can't stand in the way, but theoretically, would you, to cover your bases, would you go, we're going to do the entire thing through an intermediary?
Yeah.
And it does mention that briefly in that article, but it doesn't expound on it. And so I'm not totally sure. Yeah, I mean, how I want to know who sets these up, who
I
does it,
think
because like my overarching take on the whole thing is, as long as Tennessee and its collectives, be it Spire, the couple other ones that have popped up now, whoever it is, as long as they are covering all of their bases and making sure through Tennessee's compliance department or whatever they got to do, like, we're totally kosher. Let's do it. Be as shameless as you need to be. I'm fine with them going out saying that we talk to recruits. as long as that don't get in trouble. That's all.
Yeah,
That's all.
that's the thing is you got to be so very careful right here. I mean, it's easier than it was a few years ago where the NCAA was just looking for the money, right? If a player was receiving money, it was a violation. It didn't really matter where the money was coming from. Now, the players getting the money's fine. Like that's perfectly legal. The issue the NCAA is trying to bring up at least is where the money's coming from. So you've kind of cut out that whole, well, we just got to hide the money, and now it just depends on where it's basically like I think we said it before. It's like laundering money and trying to send it through the right places so that
It's
it.
not like laundering money. It
Well,
is laundering
it
money.
is, yeah. But I think with pretty much every scenario we've laid out still ends with an antitrust lawsuit. Like I feel
Yeah.
like no matter what, it is the NCAA trying to stand in the way of these players profiting off their name, image, and likeness. And I know that they're trying to eliminate pay for play. Like that's the biggest thing is the recruiting aspect of it, not the current players that are already on the roster, uh, which to me is still just as big of a deal because they're still recruits even when they're in college because of the transfer portal. So it's never really changed. I guess that goes into the tampering aspect of it. But I don't know. I just don't see a way that they can stop anything. Every single scenario, it feels like there's an easy workaround. As long as Tennessee doesn't do what they did under Pruitt and get real sloppy and just too brash with it, which I mean, they're kind of dangerously getting close to that as vocal as they've been. But as long as everything's kind of buttoned up the right way and they're handling it the way that they're supposed to, they should be fine.
And I think the hope has to be there that even if you do overstep your bounds right now, you'll either catch the NCAA and go like, we're going to stop you with an antitrust lawsuit so fast you won't know it hit you, or by the time this stuff actually would get worked out, the NCAA will not be in existence anymore or be even more defanged than it already is. I mean, they essentially have borderline no power at this point, realistically. But maybe that is just the hope that they kind of go like, yeah, we can be brazen, and we'll just, even if we do get pushback from the NCAA, we'll fight it. We'll fight it just as hard. Maybe that is a strategy. Because I in this situation, I think Danny White is expressly made for something like this because he just strikes me like a guy who, if the NCAA tried to come after them over like Spire, I think he would come at them like an attack dog and really do everything in his power. Because I think you saw it in their strategy with Pruitt kind of trying to come with that lawsuit. Pruitt goes out and postures like, you won't even know what hit you. I'm gonna, what did he say? It was some sort of like threat to Tennessee, and
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee turned around and went, come on, big boy, let's see it. Like, go ahead, and whatever. And of course, so far, at least the deadline that we thought Pruitt would have this thing filed by has gone and come and gone. Nothing happened. And I think White, his lawyers, the other administrators, whatever team that is, I think it's well constructed to deal with anything like this. And clearly the attitude from the NIL industry that has sort of formed now is just like, come and take it. Good luck. They're clearly just, they're not just going to sit down and go, oh yeah, we're going to let you come and interrogate these kids that we've made deals with. Because surely I'm Tennessee. If the NCAA comes and goes like, oh, we want to talk to Nico, because it feels like that's what's going to come. Like they said that they're going to mandate that these players speak with them. Mandated by who?
Yeah, good
Who?
luck.
Seriously, are you a federal law enforcement agency? Who? You're going to subpoena Nico over this? How? You're not a court of law. That's not how that works. And so I think Tennessee could just look at them and be like, absolutely not. You're not going to talk to them. You're not. And you're going to go. You're going to leave and not come back. And so I'm fascinated to see what happens, but I also am pretty trusting of the set of folks that are running this thing. The only real outlier is the folks running the collectives. I don't really know anything about them, their background, if they're going to be incredibly reckless. They're sort of a rogue element in this whole thing, and they're not dictated to by the NCAA. They don't have these sorts of things hanging over them, even though realistically they need to be cognizant of the NCAA. They don't necessarily have to be, and so that's an interesting part of it. But I so far, I think Tennessee's handling it incredibly well. And if the NCAA comes after Tennessee, good luck. Let's see what you can do. Come on down.